Let me tell you something. I like crossbows. And lately I've been playing Icarus, this is not sponsored by the way by anyone, which has very satisfying crossbows. The first one you can make is much like a medieval crossbow with a simple wooden tiller and iron prod. This is a weaker version because the character can just pull the string back with 2 fingers and 1 arm while standing without any mechanical aid, so that together with the short power stroke that traditional crossbows have would make the sting really quite weak. But there's also high-tech versions. The platinum and titanium crossbows, and by the way, platinum is a strange choice of material. Not as terrible as gold armor, but not a good idea. Either way, those are both self-loading semi-automatic crossbows, which are super cool. You drop the bolts in. Apparently they have electrically powered gears or other moving parts that rotate and kind of push the bolts down or kind of ratchet them upward to feed them onto the string, and the way that's animated is really nice and satisfying. With one exception, there are a couple of frames missing in the animation, which gives it a bit of a jarring, glitchy feel. Would be great if they fixed that. Those are really cool to shoot, and I wish those existed. Like while I was playing that, I was like, oh man, if only that was real. Well, could it be? So instead of just speculating about how plausible that is, how practical that would be, I figured, let me just check if anyone has done anything like that. And there are a number of repeating crossbow designs. And by the way, this is a pet peeve of mine. Whenever someone calls it an automatic crossbow or semi-automatic, no, that's like calling this semi-automatic. No, it's not. It's a repeating firearm because after each shot, I have to manually cycle the action, right? If it was semi-automatic, I'd be able to just keep pulling the trigger and it would go bang every time. Or in this case, it would go zip every time, whatever sound a crossbow makes. This is a repeating crossbow. Some people call it self-cocking. I can see why, because it has an integrated cocking aid. You don't need a separate tool to do that. But to me, self-cocking kind of implies that it does it automatically, so that the crossbow itself pulls the string back and readies itself. Repeating crossbow designs have been done repeatedly. Joerg, of course, on the Slingshot channel has shown quite a few of them, and there are a number of commercially available models, right? But it's not quite the same. So and there's also a very different innovative approach by Steambow. Rather than making a mechanism that pulls the string back, you make it easier by tensioning the bow limbs. So you can relax them, and thereby the string is loose. You can easily move it forward and back, whatever. And when you engage it, it's powered with air pressure to kind of deploy the crossbow limbs and make them rigid. That's all cool. There are some really impressive designs and interesting ideas. For example, also the CO2 powered air bow. It's not really a crossbow because it doesn't have prods or anything, but it shoots bolts with CO2 pressure. I've tested that before and it's quite neat, but none of that is really an automatic crossbow like the ones you see in Icarus. So I wanted to look some more. Is there anything remotely like that? And yeah, turns out there is. Let's take a look at them. All right, let's see what we've got. The first example is the electric drive on Ravin crossbows, particularly the R500E. Now that is what I would call a self-cocking crossbow. Semi-automatic is not a term I would apply to this because fast it ain't. You're definitely going to be standing there waiting for it. Which is unsurprising considering that this is a full-size, full-power crossbow with an advertised speed of 500 FPS. In my experience, real-life numbers tend to be a little lower, But either way, that's a powerful crossbow. To illustrate the speed versus power dynamic, this crossbow that I could quickly load by hand achieved only a bit more than half that FPS number. Also, this is an interesting real-life example that tempers one of my usual criticisms a little bit about mechanical designs of this nature. I'm generally concerned about the added weight because of the need for an electric motor and battery. And the weight difference isn't crazy between the R500 and the R500E. It's a hefty crossbow to begin with. And a lot of modern crossbows, in fact, crossbows in general are. Medieval ones are also generally quite heavy. And in this case, it might even help a little bit because the drive goes in the back of the crossbow. The more weight you add in the rear, the better the balance is. If you think about a bullpup rifle, for example, it's easier to hold because of the added mass in the back as opposed to something that's more front heavy, right? So that's actually not necessarily a bad thing. You can cock it manually much faster than this. So it's cool, but not quite what we're looking for. Alright, next. The ingenuity of some DIYers is truly a sight to behold. Here's a garage build, and quite an ingenious one at that, by Meanwhile in the Garage. This is crazy, but in a great way. Took some iterations to figure out the issues and whatnot, but eventually he did come up with a design that's not only self-cocking, but in fact semi-automatic. Or rather, it's even fully automatic. So you just go. It has a magazine, and that's a big thing that the Ravin does not have. It's single shot. It's self-cocking, but it does not have a magazine. This does. In fact, even a quickly reloadable magazine. That's amazing. Really cool. There's a downside, of course, as there usually is with repeating crossbows. It's not powerful. I mean, this is not a significant draw weight, really. This is like a lot of pistol crossbows. In fact, there are pistol crossbows with higher draw weight. You're maximizing speed at the expense of power. That's just how it generally goes. The same concept in a different design was also featured on the Slingshot channel, and it's extremely impressive as well. I don't know what the draw weight is of that one. That one's also driven by a power drill. And then there's a third version, the Car 76, which seems to operate the same way as far as I can tell. It's not quite the same as the Icarus mechanism. I'm not sure that's really feasible at all in the real world, but it would be super cool to have that kind of thing. It's totally unnecessary and even counterproductive to have a trapdoor that opens to drop the bolts in, which are then transported down. The last one is raised back up when you can just feed them from the bottom in a magazine or from the top if it's a gravity-fed magazine. Completely unnecessary, but super cool. And I guess the nice thing about the trapdoor is that it keeps debris out of the mechanism and makes it somewhat more weather resistant. And it's also kind of nice to be able to grab loose bolts and feed them in there, which you can, of course, with a gravity-fed top-mounted magazine as well. Now, it's not as quick as just swapping a magazine, but a magazine itself can be a little slower to reload than to just feed bolts directly into the crossbow. And then, of course, there's a limit to how many magazines you can carry as an extra piece, and you can lose it, etc., etc. But either way, it's really awesome to see that. I wasn't expecting to find crossbows that get this close to the in-game one. You can't exactly replicate it, at least I think. If anyone can figure something out, please, by all means, do let me know. Even if it's 3D printed, like sort of like a Nerf setup or something, not real steel or whatnot, I'd still be interested. If you can make something like that, I have a limited budget to work with, but I'd be willing to try to figure something out to show a design that's as close as you can possibly get to the Icarus crossbows on this channel. Because I only cocked these crossbows for the intro without any desire to shoot them, I figured I should show you how to decock them if that ever becomes relevant, because the one thing you never ever want to do is dry fire them, because that can damage them. So in case of a medieval crossbow like this with a goat's foot lever, you basically just redo the same thing or reverse what you just did. So from the position you ended up with, you're going to pull a little further back and then press the lever and then slowly controlled let it ride forward. With the cold steel cheap shot, it's a little trickier because it's a more complicated mechanism and it doesn't have a decocking function as such. So what I'm going to do is push this lever in nice and firmly so it doesn't slip out. Then I'm going to press on these tabs here on the side to pull them back. And then I'm going to let it go forward slowly, but the string is still trapped. So what I got to do is turn off the safety by pushing it forward. Now I can reach the trigger that's underneath, pull that so it slips out here. So the string is no longer captured by that, but there's still this additional pivoting safety block here that makes sure that the string can't just fly out. And the bolt that you insert is what pushes that back. So I just got to do that, just like that, click, and now the string is disengaged and this can come back, boom, decocked. Anyway, hope you found this fun. I sure did. Thanks for watching and take care, folks.